So I'm trying to build up this idea of a connected teacher. What is a connected teacher? And the idea is to be able to connect, to use technology to revolutionize what you're doing in the classroom, what your students are doing, and what you do as a teacher and as a professional. Not much to ask, I don't think. We'll see if this delivers the product. So the first thing I want to say, even though I started on that opening slide with a bunch of different logos from some tools that I'm going to show you about, the first thing that I want to start with is to forget about the tools and to think about the vision and the culture of what I think teachers should be trying to achieve. I've put some links on some of these slides to some interesting articles, so I'll send this out to Adam if you want to read up on some of these things you might be interested. These are mostly written by fellow teachers who I've encountered basically on my travels as a teacher. So my vision as a teacher is simply to become the best teacher I can be. And I found so far the technology and connecting with other teachers and the resources online provides me with the best way to do that. So that's my starting point here. And the really important thing that comes next is the culture that I try to bring to my classroom and trying to match that with the culture that the students are bringing. So what I'm finding from my students is more and more what's described in this article at the bottom it's called We the Web Kids. And it describes a changing youth culture based on greater connectivity, but also students perceiving the world and themselves in a changing way. And I see this with my students, the way they connect with each other and the way they want to break out of the classroom and do things differently to the way I did them at school is really interesting. A lot of the stuff in that article is rhetoric and is way over the top, and some of it's a bit silly, like this idea that kids intuitively know how to find information on the internet better than adults do. Okay, don't buy it. But there's a lot of interesting things there about how things are changing. So this evolving youth culture, how does it map to what I'm doing in the classroom? And how can I keep up with that and try and connect with the students in a way that shows that I understand something about them, and hopefully they can understand something about me. Maybe more relevant moving into secondary as kids become more independent, but I think it is relevant to primary as well. So my own culture for the classroom is to open up the world around me, to try and embrace change, and to use that to innovate. I've been trying to throw out what I do in the classroom a lot and bring in new things. It's obviously hard work, but it reaps rewards in terms of keeping the kids interested. So I can think of tons of different reasons why you might want to connect, why you might want to go through the same process that I've been through. I've just listed a few up there. Again, it's about understanding your students, being on the receiving end of an amazing stream of ideas. This is largely through Twitter, which I'll talk about a bit soon, which I was originally very skeptical about. But since I started using it to meet other teachers and to communicate, the amount of professional development I've increased that I've taken on has gone through the roof. Because there's just always new teaching ideas, people trying new things, and it's informal, but it's incredibly powerful. As I mentioned earlier, creating opportunities for change. And the second last point is just being inspired by your profession. I work with tons of great teachers at ICHK. I often don't have a chance to work with them as much as I'd like. And I've found that as well as the inspiration they give me, the outside inspiration I can get from connecting outside of school is really huge. Finally, I think it's the best way to become a better teacher. There's tons of different things you can do, but I think some of the steps I'll show you can help a lot of teachers. So I just want you to ask yourselves if you are connected to the following things. I'll just let you have a look through that list and ask yourself, does that describe what I'm doing? Now, I would have said for myself personally about 6 months ago I was probably connected to digital resources and not really much else. But I found that as I've pursued this path, that's really changed, and I'm finding out a lot of new things that I didn't know. So I just want to walk you through some of the steps that I've been through in trying to connect myself more thoroughly I'll show you some of the tools and explain some of the ideas. Hopefully it won't take very long. And then the idea was, what I discussed with Adam, is that you'll have a chance to work here on whatever you'd like to. But if you want to work on some of these ideas and look at some of the software and ask me questions, I can come around and give you a hand to try and get you started, basically. Everyone ready? Very exciting. So the first thing is to listen, explore, and find. There's so much stuff out there on the internet, and the vast majority of it seems to be garbage and unrelated to trying to improve yourself as a teacher. So I put up there 4 different sources that you can use that will help you start to find information that may be relevant to you as a teacher, or just generally interesting information. How many of you have used 4 of those systems? Yeah. 3 of them? 2 of them? 1 of them? That's not bad. All right. So I'll just explain a little bit about each, and hopefully you'll get some ideas from that. So StumbleUpon is a website where you choose a range of interests. So I am interested in computers, and it will generate a series of pages that you might be interested to, and you can flick through them and find ones. And as you like things, or say I don't like this, it adjusts to your taste and tries to show you more things that you do like. So whatever your interests are, you can try and find some more tailored information from that. Dig.com is similar, but it's a bit more tech-oriented. That's probably why Adam's the only one who's used it, I think. But it's a good source for technology news and for tech ideas that might come into the classroom. Delicious is a bookmarking site online, so it is a place to store what you found, which I'll come to in a minute. But it's also a place where teachers post a lot of useful information. So you can go and you can search by a particular keyword, and you'll find resources that other teachers have found. But it will also show you how many people have bookmarked it, so you can get an idea of its relative popularity and hopefully how good it is. Okay, the last one, Twitter, I'm sure everyone's familiar with. I was a real denier of how. Sorry,
Twitter skeptic.
Yes, exactly. From what I'd seen, the way people used it, it was just a sort of narcissistic tool for broadcasting what I've done today, what I had for lunch, when I go to the toilet, whatever it might have been. But there's actually a lot of professionals using it really well to share ideas with each other, but also to share, not just to put things out, but to have conversations, to move information back and forth. So when I showed you that link to, right at the beginning about the culture, that's actually written by a teacher who works in Indonesia, who through Twitter I've connected with, and he's a very profound thinker about education and technology, and I've actually learned a lot just by associating with him and following what he says. So you start to build up these connections with different people. So those are just 4 sites to look at what's going on around you in terms of technology and education. And the idea is, as you start to use those, that you begin to catalog the resources and the information you find, and you curate them into useful sets. How many of you have found this where you've seen something on the internet, you know exactly what it is, and then you can't find it again when you need to? Okay? I used to find that all the time, and then I started using Delicious, which I did mention on the last slide, to hold my own bookmarks. So I started this about 4 years ago when I worked at the ESF. Anytime I found something interesting, I put it into Delicious. I catalog it with keywords, with tags, and then I can go back and find it relatively easily. And I found the way this works really well in terms of teaching is that it means that I have a bank of resources on hand that I've seen before, and I have somewhere in the back of my mind. And when it comes to planning lessons, that gives you a real advantage because you've already got a lot of creative ideas. You don't have to go out and look for it. You don't think, oh God, I've got to teach this. What could I use? You can go into that resource bank that you've already got. So if you haven't already developed one, it's not too late. It just takes time to build it up. And obviously, the more you're looking for things, the more things you'll find and the more you can curate. And when I say curate, I mean not just saving things, but actively trying to tag them and catalog them so that you can find them again in the future. So for example, if I found a newspaper article to do with literacy rates in Hong Kong, I might tag that for English and for literacy, but I might also tag it for ICT if there's an ICT connection. And later on I can find that much more easily by searching for those keywords. I'll give you some examples of these later on. Up there are 3 other systems that you can use to keep information like this. How many of you have heard of Evernote? Just out of interest. You? Okay. ICHK is like 100% because we have an Evernote fanatic teacher, and he's getting everyone to use it. It's kind of like Delicious, but it lets you store your own notes, not just other people's links. So you can start to store notes in the same organized way, but you can put files in them. It's much more of a whole filing system. So that might be okay. If I'm going too fast, let me know. If you have any questions, just pop your hands up and I'll. So from cataloging and curating, what I found is I've actually started to have more creative ideas about the way I teach and about just creativity in general. So I've started writing more, I've started taking more photos, I've started making some movies and things like that. And these are some tools that I've been using to do that. So I'm sure Pages and iMovie are familiar to all of you as a Mac school. How many of you have used Comic Life? A few people? Right. Comic Life is really fantastic. It's a really simple way to build up comic strips using photos and to put speech bubbles and things like that. And it's great for creating teaching resources because they're immediately more interesting than just a plain worksheet. So that's one to try. And the other one is Acorn, which is some graphic software just for general graphics editing. So I found that just as general stimulation, as being in touch with more people who are thinking about education has made me a lot more creative, but it's also made me a lot more thoughtful in the way that I go about my job, in the way I try to analyze what I'm doing as a teacher. As I've been creating more, I've also been trying to publish and share online. So I've been trying to take my own work and not just keep it for myself, but to make it a little nicer, a little more thorough, a little more original, and to share it online with other teachers. Again, Twitter's a really good place to start with this because you can quite quickly connect with other teachers and say, hey, look, I've developed this unit of work, would you like to use it? And I found through that process, just in the last 2 months, I started working on a project with a school in the US and a school on St. Helena, which is a really small island in the Atlantic, which gave me some really good opportunities that I wouldn't have had before that I can then pass on to my students. So I've now got this group of kids in Hong Kong who are blogging with a group of kids in St. Helena, and they couldn't have more different lives, yet they instantly had this opportunity to learn from each other and to create something together. And that wouldn't have happened without using Twitter. If you like, because Twitter only gives you a very small amount of text to publish each time, you can publish 140 characters at a time. It's all about brevity, but if you want to write a little bit more deeply and publish more information, you can use a blogging system like WordPress. That is pretty simple to sign up and create an account, and you can start sharing your ideas. One thing I've done recently is to start making some short movies from my teaching. It can be really hard to find the time to do this. You've got a busy teaching schedule, there's lots of other things to do, but I found that I made a couple short clips of what my students are doing in the classroom. I've shared them, and students enjoy that. And I've had some good feedback from other schools that they're interested in those ideas for teaching. And the last one on the right is Creative Commons. Is anyone familiar with Creative Commons?
Oh,
I'm looking at you.
Trying to be original here with all the answers. Creative Commons is a copyright system that basically says when I create something, instead of copywriting it and keeping it for me and you can't have it, it's about sharing what you create with other people. And in return for sharing your things, you get access to lots of things that other people have created that they want to share with you. So rather than having to start anything from scratch or having to steal from Google Images, there's a legally sound set of ideas and artifacts that you can draw from to use. And quite a lot of teachers are starting to use that now as a way to share what they're doing rather than keeping it for themselves. So that's one way if you want to share your work that you can make sure that other people in theory can't steal it and use it for exclusion for others. Okay, the final thing that I'm sort of still coming to grips with is conversing and interacting electronically, remotely with other people. So as I mentioned, through Twitter I'm engaging one-on-one with quite a lot of teachers, but there's quite an interesting event that happens Wednesday morning Hong Kong time. It's called EdChat. So in Twitter you can mark a tweet with a hashtag like this, which is a keyword, and you can follow a hashtag and find all the tweets that are coming up with that tag in it. So a group of teachers have decided that they're going to have a conversation on a Wednesday morning Hong Kong time. I think it's Tuesday night in the US. And every post gets tagged with this. And you get about 100 teachers having this crazy discussion about one topic that's picked each week by whoever runs this. And it's actually amazing. You suddenly encounter, so there'll be, I think the one I participated in most recently was, should schools restrict what students do with technology in school? And of course people have strong feelings about this because there's so many potential risks to students using technology. And the range of discussion and the viewpoints and the ideas that people put forth was so informative. It was amazing. It was like being at a conference, but it was just on the train on my way to work. So, and the topic is not technology related every week. It's something different in education. So for me, that was a real eye-opener to suddenly have this whole world of teachers who want to talk about things. It was fantastic. That's why I had to apologize for not talking to anyone here at the beginning. I do it electronically as well. Again, WordPress is a blogging platform. There's a lot of teachers posting ideas, and through that you can get into sort of comment discussions about ideas that people are having, and they may be related to particular teaching strategies or lessons, but a lot of the time they're sort of philosophy of teaching, and I find that very interesting just to connect with other people and see what they're talking about. If you have a smartphone, you can use a lot of these tools on the go, and that's where I tend to find the time is if I'm sitting on the train or the bus, and these little bits of professional development come to me, and it's not a matter of sitting down, it's not an arduous task, it's just something that's ongoing. Finally, with Skype, how many of you have used Skype for school purposes to try and connect with students to things? Okay. I'm going to put my hand down at this stage. It's something I keep meaning to do because it's really amazing. And just to give you an example of what you can do, an opportunity came up the other day for me. My students in independent learning are learning about Joseph Kony and all the things that are going on in Uganda with their seemingly endless civil war. So I've actually fallen into an opportunity where it looks like I'll have an opportunity to Skype with a former child soldier who lived in Hong Kong, is now back in Uganda. So as far as educational experiences go, I think that's really hard to top, because the kids are suddenly like, oh, this isn't just something that we're watching on a video, this is actually someone that we can talk to. And again, through that opportunity didn't come through Twitter, but there's a lot of opportunities like that where if you make the effort to connect with people, the things that you receive back are really amazing, the opportunities you get. So fingers crossed that will happen really soon, and the kids are genuinely excited about that when I told them. Half of them went off and set up a Skype account because they wanted to do it right now. So they're off and running. I'll just recap those quickly. So it's about looking around you and trying to find new resources and new ideas, cataloging them so that you have inspiration in advance and you can come back and find those things when you need them. The whole process leads you to think and create more, which means you want to publish and share things online, hopefully, and that leads to conversations and interactions with other teachers. There's a very interesting link there called PLNs for Educators. A PLN is a personal learning network, so it's your colleagues that you surround yourself with in school and beyond school, who you can turn to for advice, inspiration, and support. And that's, if you read that, it paints quite a good picture of people using Twitter to have a network of teachers that they can turn to. For example, one use of a personal learning network I've seen is there's a guy who had to give a keynote and he didn't know what to give this keynote about. He had a rough idea, but he wanted to do something original. He sent a message out to his personal learning network and said, "Do you have any ideas?" He got a bunch of ideas and produced what seemed to be a really good presentation. So it's like a extended brain, if you will. Some of the things that people are doing at ICHK along these lines, Martin Clark has been doing a lot with sending out resources by Twitter. So I've got, probably this year I've got about 20 resources. He's seen things online that he thought I'd be interested in and he's passed it on to me. And it's really quick and easy to do that with Twitter. So you start getting these ideas flying around school. Amanda Look is one of our Mandarin teachers and she's building an online textbook with her students. So each week they're choosing vocabulary, which they're putting up in Pinyin, traditional characters, and English. And then she's now got students doing audio recordings of the pronunciation and putting that in as well. So they're trying to build up this textbook that they can then share with other schools who will come to our school website to start learning Mandarin. So I think that's a pretty cool idea in terms of getting the kids to build something up whilst they're in your classroom. Nicholas Arriaga does most of his assignments through our school blog platform, which is we've had extended here, but I'm not sure if it's fully working yet, so we've got to get that going. But basically, every student at ICHK has a blog, and his students do all their work for him in the blog, and he marks it and comments it, which is quite a nice thing to do in terms of that it gets students used to having to publish their work. For a primary school, we probably want the blogs to be private, but at ICHK they're public on the web. So students get used to the idea that anyone can read this, and then you try and get them to comment on each other's work and look at each other's work as well. Jennifer Goldthorpe is a drama teacher. She's been doing a lot with building up a library of resources using Delicious. I think that's brilliant teaching. And Alan Lowe constantly tweets educational philosophy, which is quite interesting. I always know what we need to do in the morning. A few of my personal highlights, just things that I've really enjoyed. Just as I said earlier, this constant stream of fresh ideas every day. So often I'll get off the bus and I'll be like, oh, I'm going to go to work, and then I'll look at my phone and someone had this great idea that they shared on Twitter, and I'll think, oh, okay, I'll go and do that today or tomorrow. And it just makes life so much more interesting. I've been filming and sharing my lessons, as I said. Sometimes I do that just for myself, so I'll film a lesson and then review it myself and give it to my boss to view. That's just as a different way to do an observation. But sometimes I'll stitch them together and try and make like a highlight reel for the students to watch or put online. Global classroom collaboration, so as I mentioned with St. Helena, just trying to connect with other schools. Just the kids really get into it, they find it a lot more interesting. Finding resources to inspire lessons ahead of time rather than hunting them down at the last minute. Thinking and blogging about education. There's my blog, but you don't feel compelled to look at it. It might not interest you, it's about technology. There's a hashtag there which is comments for kids. Quite a few teachers I've seen have used that on Twitter and said, can you visit my students' blogs at this address and leave some comments? And that's a nice way to drive people to view what your kids are doing and to leave some comments for them. So that's because a lot of the time when blogging with students, they think, well, no one's looking at this. But when a few people turn up and say something, that's quite rewarding for the students. And the last one I found is that as I've taken more from other people, I've wanted to share more back. And as I've wanted to share more back, I've had this incentive to be more creative.